Well, the grabber is back and he's feeling even more grabbier and he wants to get in your dreams in Black Phone 2. We're going to review it. Let's go. Black Phone 2 stars Ethan Hawke, Mason Thames, Madeline McGraw, and is directed by Scott Derricks.
This place, you brought us here for a reason.
Nothing burns like the cold.
What's up, guys? Welcome to a brand new 2025 review. Black Phone 2 is out. Is it the Black Phone 2? According to IMDb, it's Black Phone 2, whereas I think the first one's called The Black Phone. Okay, whatever. I watched the first one again last night. I think this is the first time I've watched the first Black Phone movie since it came out in theaters. And boy, am I glad I did that, because anytime you're going into a sequel, especially one like this with returning characters, it's always good to kind of catch up on those characters. And I forgot how great, freaking great, the first Black Phone movie is. And there's just such a progression in that movie and an escalation, especially in terms of like emotion. And I really enjoyed the ride. And I loved the character Finn and his sister Gwen so much in that movie. So this new one, they're definitely mixing things up, because you have the grabber sort of in the dream world. And if you remember when the trailer came out for this, I think a lot of people were comparing this to A Nightmare on Elm Street, just because, again, it's in the dream world. And I even said, hey, somebody might owe a little bit of money to the Craven estate after seeing that trailer. Do I still think that after actually watching the movie? No, I think the movie is different enough, but still, there are some definite similarities to Freddy Krueger and A Nightmare on Elm Street. Also, real quick before we dive into the review, I'm walking out of the theater and then this young man walks up to me, says, hey, do you have a YouTube channel? Are you Drumdums? I'm a big fan of the channel. His name was Kyle. Anytime somebody does that, I think that's just the nicest thing in the world. So, Kyle, nice to meet you, man. And if you see this video, thank you. I really appreciate that. Love that you guys watch the channel. It just makes this whole experience even more awesome than it already is. So let's get into a quick plot synopsis. This will be a spoiler-free review. I'm going to do a spoiler review because there's a lot that I could talk about in this movie. It does get pretty ambitious. And again, the plot is quite different than the first movie. Of course, there are some supernatural elements from the first movie. The phone, voices from the phone that are brought over to this movie. But still, there's some things that I want to kind of keep close to the vest. And I was kind of pondering, like, how does the grabber come back after he's already died in the first movie? Do I want to even divulge that to you guys? You know what? I won't. I'll save that for the spoiler review. You might not want to know that information just yet, okay? My audience is pretty savvy, and I think you guys can kind of get the gist of if the movie's good or not without knowing that information. So, yeah, look for the spoiler review, I think, this weekend. But yeah, let's give you a quick plot synopsis, okay? This takes place 4 years after the events of the last movie, and you're definitely going to be able to tell that, especially since Finn and his sister, they look a lot older, especially the sister. And as you can imagine, after the events of the last movie, Finn, it's taken an emotional toll on him. Yes, he saved the day and everything, but after going through what he went through, it's going to have an effect on you. And by the way, after watching the first movie, there is a movie that came out when I was growing up in the 80s called I Know My Name is Steven. And I remember the kid reminded me a little bit of Finn in this movie. And it's sort of a similar situation where the kid's gone. In that situation, in real life, by the way, he was kidnapped for 7 years and then he came back. And of course, in the Black Phone, it's not that long at all. It's a couple months. But even, a couple of months, can you imagine what that would do to you if you were, you don't know if you're going to live. You probably think you're going to die. So I like that in this movie, you get to see where Finn is as a character after 4 years. And he's a lot tougher. And they sort of carry over some of the events from the first movie as far as like who his friends were, or at least protectors from that movie. That carries over into his own personality into this one. Yes, he does get into fights. Yes, he does argue with his father. He's rebellious, and that's definitely believable. Gwen is sort of more mature now after 4 years. She's come to terms with her own, I guess, supernatural abilities. I would just say in this movie, you do learn a little bit more about their family, specifically their mother. We learned that the mother had a tragic ending in the first movie. And in this movie that we explore that a little bit more, I can say that it does tie into the overall plot of this movie quite a bit, exponentially. Let's just say this. The mother, she is what drives them to this place called Alpine Lake. It's in the winter. You know, there's like this big snowstorm. But they go to this closed down camp because Gwen is having these dreams like she did in the first movie. And it seems like this case will not leave her. Her mother is in her dreams, and she sees this Alpine Lake, and that's how she ends up at this place. She wants to go there and try to figure out why she's having these dreams. And of course, when she gets there, that's when the grabber comes into the story and starts creating havoc. This is where you start seeing the dream world, her having these dreams. This is very much like what you see in A Nightmare on Elm Street. You know, like he'll be affecting her and you'll see him, but if somebody else sees what's going on, they don't see the grabber. They just see her reaction to it. All right, that's all I'll tell you about the plot of this movie. I think you know enough. There are a couple of problems I do have with this movie. We will get to that, but I'll start off and I'll rip the Band-Aid off and tell you I did quite like this movie. I don't think it's as strong as the first movie. I think the first movie as a complete package, checking all the boxes of an enjoyable horror movie, I think it's much more effective. But I do love how ambitious this movie is, how it doesn't try to just repeat the first movie's plot. You know, this ain't Halloween 2 to Halloween 1, although I do love Halloween 2. It's a different story, and I like the risks they took with this story. First thing I really loved about it, Gwen as a character, I think she is more the main character in this movie. Yes, Finn is an important character, but we focus much more on Gwen in this movie because she is the one that's having these dreams, and she is the one that is sort of under attack. And so Finn is more of the savior. It's like their roles are reversed in this movie, and I thought that was really cool. Another thing that I really loved is the scenes with the grabber. And he's only in the movie for, I'm guessing, maybe 15, 20 minutes. That might be a con to a lot of you guys. I think as long as it's spaced out well, it's okay. I mean, hell, if you think back to even like a lot of the earlier Nightmare on Elm Street movies, how long is Freddy actually in the movie? Having said that, I still would have wanted more of the grabber. I think there could have been a couple of more sequences because I remembered maybe 2 or 3 sequences, but those sequences are very good. They are the best part of the movie, at least from like a horror action standpoint. And there's definitely some bloodshed. There's a lot of violence in this movie for sure. They do not hold back in terms of showing the deaths, shocking imagery. You know, this is definitely a rated R horror movie. I think it's rated R. It should be. If this is not rated R, this is the hardest PG-13 movie I think I've ever seen. The best thing I really loved about Black Phone 2 was the visual style, the creative choices that they took with this movie. I think it really shines above everything else. Obviously, when you're in the dream world, they'll go with a different visual style. In this instance, it's like an 8mm type vibe that you see. Just very grainy. I call it like Skinamarink camera. That's what it feels like, except shit actually happens in this movie as opposed to Skinamarink. But one thing Skinamarink did do, at least the first time you watched it, was because of that camera style, it put you on edge. Same thing here. I think every time she's in that dream world, because of the look of these scenes, it is quite chilling. Just the freaking camera work alone, the color grading of the picture. I could have watched a whole movie like this. It was really cool. Sort of reminded me of like those 70s grindhouse type movies, putting it in a big studio type movie, and it really works. I wanted more of it, to be honest. And you're going from a digital look, you know, let's call it like a 35mm type look, even though it looks like this was shot digitally. And there's a spectrum there because when you get into those dream sequences and the 8mm look, there's no question. You know for a fact, oh yeah, we're definitely now in the dream world. And I do think you have a satisfying finale, satisfying conclusion to this movie. Do they leave it open for the grabber to come back? We're not going to talk about that. We'll talk about that in the spoiler review. But actually, you guys are going to decide if the grabber comes back, because if this money makes money, of course they're going to try to make another movie. This is nothing new. You could freaking kill a character deader than a doornail, and if money is made, he will come back. It happens. Okay, let's jump into a couple of things that I didn't really care about in the movie. You remember Gwen in the first movie, how she was sort of the comic relief. She was quite hilarious, but nothing felt forced about, I guess some of the comedic lines that she gives. The verbiage is really funny. She's got a potty mouth on her. This movie, there's so much more of that, but it almost feels a little forced. It feels like, okay, that really worked in this movie. Let's like double down. And sometimes maybe you shouldn't double down. And don't get me wrong, guys. This isn't me saying that I don't like cursing in movies. If you know me, you know I love fucking cursing in movies, all right? But it's got to fit the story, right? It does fit the character, but I just think maybe they leaned a little bit too heavily on it. Maybe because I think script-wise, this is the weaker script dialogue-wise. I think the first movie was much more fleshed out. It felt like that script was probably passed over quite a few times, whereas this script, maybe it needed a couple of more passes, okay? Also, I think the biggest problem I have with this movie is the pacing. I think it takes a long time to actually get to the grabber, to get to the true horror of the movie. Yes, they do focus heavily on character work, the aftermath of the first movie and what it's doing to these children. And that's not bad stuff at all. Don't get me wrong. But I just think as far as like pacing goes, you want a certain pacing when you have a horror movie like this. And I think the first movie had the perfect, pacing. Starting off nice and light, and then just a gradual build. That's what I was looking for. More of a gradual build. But this, it sort of felt like it was just kind of, there wasn't much of a build. And then all of a sudden, boom, we're into the horror. But once you get into the horror sequences with especially Gwen are really, really chilling and satisfying. So overall, in the end, that's all I'm going to tell you. I'm going to give this a low purchase worthy, okay? And I'm really looking forward to watching it again. I might end up going to see it again this weekend. But right now, if there's one absolute, I can absolutely tell you that the first movie is the better movie. I can't see myself coming around to this movie thinking it's better than the first, just because I think the first is so freaking good, okay? It's a tall order to beat the first movie, in my opinion. But again, low purchase worthy. I recommend you guys go see this movie for sure. I think you guys will dig it, okay? But I think you'll see some of those issues that I'm trying to highlight, okay? So let me know what you guys think in the comments. I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts. Also, be sure to come over to Killer Flicks, where we talk horror all day and every day. And on Fridays, we do Free For All Fridays. Follow my Drumdums on my social support me on Patreon. Become a channel member. Buy me coffee. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Have a good day, and Drumdum out.